Mrs. Serasinghe, it's very kind of you to agree to answer some questions. But may I call you Iranganie?
Certainly, certainly.
I feel a bit shy because, of course, you're more my parents' generation.
Yes.
I knew you as a wonderful actress, but I also knew that you belong to the Medania family. I think your grandfather was an Adiga, and it was obviously a very aristocratic family. How did you get into acting?
Well, I really don't know, but from the time I was small, I kind of performed at home, especially because there in Ruangwela, we lived in a small village called Mudugomo, and there was no entertainment or nothing of that sort there. But once in a way, a thing called a circus used to come there. And really, it wasn't a circus at all. It was a whole variety of performances of various music and dancing and little playlets and so on. And there used to be various characters doing, the playlet. And I would come home and imitate them. And apparently, everybody was highly amused, and I had to perform when my relations came. I had to give the same performance. So there was I performing. And also we had school plays. And I remember my first play, Water Babies. Yeah, I remember that. I remember the costume also. And then from there on, right through every year, we had a school play. And that was that.
This was at which school?
Bishop's College, yes, yes.
So you'd have been with people like Manorani?
Oh, yes, yes. Manorani and I were classmates, I think, from kindergarten.
Right, lovely. And I believe that I've been told that you had a wonderful English teacher in the form of, was it Pauline Hensman?
Where?
At Bishop's.
At Bishop's? No, not Pauline. We had Miss Modder, Linda Modder, and Miss Christophers.
Right. So were they the people who did the dramas as well, or were they a drama teacher?
There were drama teachers. At the class teacher also took over, and there was Miss Bulgens and Miss Carnival and a whole lot of teachers. It was generally the class teacher who got it together. And
right, but then unusually for, if I might be blunt, from someone from such a background, you were allowed to go to university. Now I know my mother was forbidden. Her sister-in-law, your cousin, Nalini Wickramasinghe, also a very clever lady, wasn't allowed to go to university because parents thought it was inappropriate. You might be led astray. Your family was happy for you to go?
My father was dead against it. He said, I'll never forget this. He said, you shall not go into the den of iniquity. The den of iniquity. And he himself had been to Oxford. I mean, he was an Oxford student. But he said, no, Sinhala Kandyan girls do not go into university.
So how did you manage?
So I cried and I did my number. Right. And I said, I've starved myself to death. But of course, in the night I had to go and raid the refrigerator. My mother knew all about that, but some of my cousins and various people got together and told my father, no, let her go, because in the future it might be very important and very useful that she has got a degree. And they sort of persuaded him, and finally he succumbed and said, all right.
That's very glad. But did the rest of your family also go to university, or brothers and sisters?
No, my younger sister also went at the same time that I did. But I had a cousin, that was another reason why he didn't didn't want me to go. I had a cousin who became a Marxist.
Oh, right.
That was the end.
Who was that?
That was Sama Laval.
Oh, right, of course, yes.
So Sama was, passing us books, and besides Sama, Esmond Wickramasinghe. Right. He was also giving me tuition, as it were.
In becoming a Marxist.
Becoming a Marxist. My father was, one day I remember when I went to see Esmond and Nalini, and my father also came to see them. He was very fond of Nalini. And they said, your father has come. And I had to go under the bed. They all pushed me under the bed.
Because he knew Esmond was a dangerous influence. Maybe that's why my grandparents also, because, Esmond was the eldest son. Apple of the eye, and when he became a Marxist, I think they were deeply upset. And I think that's perhaps another reason my mother was told very firmly, stay at home. But in fact, your youngest sister, you mentioned her who went to university. He's the lady who married Professor Tissavitana of the
That's right, yeah.
Lanka Samasamaja Party. Right. And she's quite radical, I think, in her political views. Right. It had been. And your brother? You had one brother, I believe.
I had one brother, but he didn't go to university. He became a planter.
Right, because of course the estates had to be looked after, is it? Yes.
Well, he joined the planters. I don't know what the...
Ah, right. Yes. When they took over the plantations. There were two. Jana, they were still on plantations, CPC, and then there was the Jana Survey or something.
I can't remember. There were two, yes.
So he worked for that, was it?
Yes, he worked for the government in the end, yes.
But what was university like? Because you would have had, apart from the Marxism, presumably that was a hotbed of drama.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, in the university especially, there are definite two groups, the right and the left, and never they meet. And so there were a lot of conflicts and, all that sort of thing. But still, for all that...
Which period was this? You were at
1947.
Right, so when the ferment of independence was also happening, yes. But of course, Esmond by then was a solid conservative, having married Nalini and gone to Lake House.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yes. And I remember even we were quite... we used to go on marches and with waving red flags and all. For that, of course, my father was dead by that time. My mother was very much against that. She said, "Who on earth asked you to go to the streets waving flags? You were not born to do this kind of thing." All of that. But funnily enough, what she protested most against was my desire to learn Kandyan dancing from Chitrasena.
Right. Gosh, why was that?
Well, Kandyan girls, yes.
Wrong caste.
That's right. This was a caste thing, I suppose. So I said, but we learned Greek dancing and we learned ballet dancing and ballroom dancing, but we can't learn our own dancing. I said, and anyway, she relented in the end, and I went under Chitrasena.
So Chitrasena taught at the university, or was
No. He was teaching. He had a school, and I went there. Vajira was a small girl then. Yeah. It was very strange, and he was such a taskmaster. He knew that Vajira was an excellent dancer, but she was a little girl then, and when she made mistakes or whatever, he had a stick and he used to hammer her with that stick.
Really?
And I used to say, "God, you don't beat girls like that, shame on you." And he said, I used to fight with him quite a bit. And Vajira used to say, "I'm not going to stay here anymore." She was living there with his parents were there. She used to turn around and she used to run home to Kalutara. But very soon she was back again. The drum beats must be all in her ears.
She couldn't get over that. It was in her blood, no? That whole family.
Yes, wonderful, yes, everyone of them.
And what about the drama? Who was in charge of drama at the university? Was Ludovic around?
When I first did, the first play I did, which was the second Mrs. Tankare, Ludovic wasn't there. And Amarasinghe, who was a classics professor, Katwad Amarasinghe, he did Antigone. Then Ludovic came after that and did Antigone and all those other plays.
Was he wonderful to work with, or was he a difficult taskmaster?
No, he wasn't a difficult taskmaster. In fact, he was very good. I mean, he explained why and wherefore and so on. Of course, Edith Ludovic did the costumes and the set, and they were wonderful sets and costumes. But she was a toughie, wow, yeah. But
she was Hungarian or something?
She was Hungarian, yes, and she was Jewish, so she had suffered as being a Jewish. But they both became very good friends in the end. Yes, they were very fine people.
And was Jubal, I believe, there was a Czech?
Yes, because Edith knew Jubal in Europe, yeah. And he had left Yugoslavia, and he had gone to, I think, Germany, southern Germany or something. And from there he was emigrating to Australia after the war. So they kind of captured him en route, yes. And he came and he did plays here. In fact, the Lionel Went was opened by his play.
Which was that? That was...
The lower depths.
right, of course.
Yes, yes.
Again, a good social play.
Right, yes.
Did you know Lionel went at all, or he had died?
No, he had died by the time I sort of surfaced, yes.
But was Harold Pires still?
Oh,
involved?
yes, yes. I remember Harold. What a sweet man he was, really. Lovely man.
Of course.
Yes, he was your neighbor, that's right. He was such a nice man. And you couldn't say that he was such a learned man, that he had done Sanskrit and, things like that. Because he was, he would hardly, he was so shy to talk. Yes.
Sweet, lovely.
Yeah, lovely person, yeah. So was your father.
No, it's a wonderful generation.
Yes, wonderful generation, yeah.
But can I just ask, because apart from you being a wonderful actor, I have only seen you on film. I never had the pleasure of seeing you on stage. But I have seen your husband on stage, and he was just fantastic.
Yes.
Did you meet him at university?
Yes, around about that time, or just after, I think. We did plays together. Raju Kumarasamy used to produce plays.
Oh, Raju, who was the famous civil servant later,
Yes,
right?
yes. Raju and then various other people also used to produce plays. And we got involved in those.
And Winston Serasinghe.
Winston Serasinghe, yes,
But,
yes.
my Aunt Ina always describes him as Sarah.
Yes. They were great friends.
And he was also an excellent sportsman, am I right?
Yes, he was Raggarite, yes. Oh, yeah.
Because they said, suddenly this, in Sri Lanka they tend to divide people into Hearties and Easthetes. And suddenly this great rugger player turned out to be the most fantastic actor.
Yes.
Did you, as it were, meet him through the stage initially?
Yes, I think I met him through this.
What did you act together in, if I might ask?
Well, in the Lionel Went opening play, we played together. Yes, Lower Depths we played together, and then Othello. Yes, we did that too. Also.
When was that? In
the university.
At the university.
At the university. Yeah.
Because no, he didn't take part in the Othello that was done.
No, sorry, that was not in the university. That was done by.
Because there was an Othello in the 60s. That wasn't the one you took part in.
That must have been the one, yes.
And there were two sets of actors.
That's right, yes.
And one was you and Winston, was it?
Yes.
Right.
One was
And the other was Chitrasena.
Chitrasena. Sheelangi, yes.
Sheila Gunawam.
You know that period was a very fine period, because, as you probably know, at that time, the Sinhala theatre and the English theatre had nothing to do with each other. They could be from separate countries. We didn't know who they were. We never went to see Sinhala plays, and the Sinhala people never came to see our plays. And then when the Lionel Went was, then we opened and we played and so on. And we said the Art Centre Club was started then. We said we need a place where the artists could go and sit down and have a chat and so on. And the Art Centre Club was formed. And I said one of the main reasons for starting the Art Centre Club was we hoped that we would invite or draw the Sinhala theatre crowd to come to the Art Centre Club and mix with us, and then we have a truly Sri Lankan theatre. And that was happening. Yes, because the English-speaking actors went and played in Sinhala films, and the Sinhala-speaking actors came and played the English film. I was really happy about that. It was so ridiculous.
If I might move on a long way, soon after I came back to Sri Lanka, I was asked to become one of the officers of the Arts Centre Club when Richard de Soiza was trying to revive it. And we actually set up these evenings. And one of my first memories of both of you is we asked some of the great actors to come, and you both came, and you mixed with us. And I still remember Sarah, if I might call him that, being so free and easy with us youngsters.
Oh, he was, yes.
It was great fun. I don't know whether you remember that. It didn't last very long, but it was a good period. If I might just go back a bit, I think I remember all those great plays in the 60s. I'm afraid I miss seeing you on stage. But of course, you then moved very much into film.
Yes.
And that is really how everyone knows you.
Yeah, that's
How did that happen? Was it...
Well, Lester knew us. Right. I was married, first of all, to S.B. Dissanayake.
Right, the famous dentist.
Dentist, yes, yeah. And he was very friendly with Ivan, that's Lester's brother.
Right.
And we would go very often to see Ivan and, you know, all of that. And Manju Strauss used to come there. And it was always there, practically. And so I met Lester and all of that. And Lester would come and see our plays. So when Lester was in England also, we visited him and got to know him. And then I came before Lester. I came back to Sri Lanka before Lester. But when he came back, he wanted to do a film. And what he did was not a feature film. He did a little film for the traffic police. And it was called Be Safe or Be Sorry, with Lucian Soiza and, you know, if you were playing. And I was also given a tiny role. And so that was the first time I was in front of the camera.
What year was that, if I might ask? 50s?
Must have been the 50s, must have been the early 50s.
You had gone to England for studies or with Dissa?
With Dissa, yes. And then I went there, I went to the Old Vic Theatre School because Ludovic said, if you're going abroad, you must go to a theatre school. And imagine this, I didn't know what a theatre school was, and I thought, teach you to act? I said, what is that to teach to act? I thought you just got on the stage and acted. It's only when I went there that I knew what it was. I can still go back and learn. There's something to learn always.
So how long was that course?
Well, I first went to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, which was the oldest theatre school in Bristol, because he was there in Bristol. And then he was transferred to London. So then I went to the Central School of Speech Training and Dramatic Art. So I was really there for just over 2 years, nearly 3 years. Yeah, but the course, a complete course is 4 years.
But you had 2 years and that was
Yes.
And then came back into film.
And then came back and got into film, yes.
I think my first memory of you, but correct me if I'm wrong, was in Sandesha. Were you in Sandesha or have I got
Yes,
that wrong?
I was in Sandesha.
And you were drowned.
Drowned.
Right. I still have this memory of you being pushed in.
And I nearly drowned because I was pushed in the wrong way and I couldn't breathe and all of that.
I thought it's one of the first films I saw, a dramatic film, as it were, in Sinhala.
Yes.
And that, it was really quite frightening. That scene has stuck with me. You getting drowned with that terrible Portuguese captain, yes. I think played by Arthur van Langenberg.
Arthur van Langenberg, yes. I was given the punishment.
Right. But then you never looked back after that anyway, in lots of films, Lester.
Yes, Lester. And somehow the stage started waning, especially the English theatre scene.
Yes, I remember that great efflorescence, I think the Othello.
Yeah.
I think I didn't see you all, I saw Chitrasena and Sheila.
Yeah.
And then of course there was Death of a Salesman.
Yes.
In which Winston was just fantastic. But then it sort of tailed off and it turned into more sort of Agatha Christie's and frivolous stuff. And then when I went off to England and came back, there was a younger generation that was doing musicals.
That's right.
So it was less. But I'll never forget, you may remember that fantastic, you mentioned Lucian de Soiza. Yeah. He and Winston in Waiting for Godot.
Oh, yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
But tell me about actually your involvement in teledrama, because that's how many people know you. And you, in a sense, created the art. By then you were the old lady, but you dominated so many teledramas. And they used to write parts for you, if I'm not mistaken.
So they say sometimes.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, who were the good directors?
Well, when I first in Parakrama Niriyale asked me to take part in Yasorave, which Richard also played, yes. And after that there was Dudaru. And those two plays, wherever I go, people talk to me about those two plays. And they said, can't you produce plays like that again?
They were iconic.
So I was very curious about why people like this. I went to Yala once, and right in the depths of Yala, somebody came and said, Yaso Rave hitiya neda, and Dudaro hitiya neda. And I asked him, why do you all like this Dudaro so much? He said, Kape katavane, our story.
It came back to them because this was the first Sri Lankan creative thing on TV. Earlier we had only had, Western serials. And I think it was, but it also, I think, created a great sense of national art for TV. Parakraman in Nirela in particular, I think was very instrumental in making TV of immediate relevance to Sri Lanka.
Yes, Yasorava they liked very much.
What was it like acting with Richard? It must have been just before he died. Huh?
Oh God, yes, just before he died. Well, as you know, I knew Richard from almost childhood, his childhood. And Manorani and I were good friends. And he was such a lovely person. And he was such a good actor. Actually, the first time I saw Richard act was in a play. I was asked to go and judge the plays or something. And this boy came and he acted. I thought, my God, what a wonderful actor this is, I didn't know it was Richard then. And of course, then I met him several times and we spoke about. He was so involved in life itself, and what a loss for this country, actually. He killed him.
Did you see Manorani afterwards? Because
yes, she was living very close. We were both living in Navala, very close to each other. And in fact, I went, as soon as I heard that this had happened, I went to her house.
Because I think, everyone knew the government had done it.
Yes.
And no one quite knows why. But she was magnificent, I think, in despite her grief, demanding that it be investigated, because that was a frightening time.
Yeah, frightening time, yes, that's right.
And I think, she got a lot of strength from all of you all as well. I think one of her great friends who must have been with you was Jean Pinto.
Jean, yes, oh yes, Jean, of course, yes.
But the other thing that struck me about your generation, if I might say so, there was this wonderful artistic group that had been at university with an interest in politics, but also a great interest, what you said, a great interest in life, what you said about Richard. And you mentioned Yala. And Ina de Silva would tell me about all of you all meeting there, going on camping trips. Was it a more leisured life then?
Well, I would say it was a more leisured life, but it was also, we were desperately interested in wildlife and so on. Actually, one of my greatest interests in life, or it's more than an interest, is to preserve the natural environment, and I still fight for it. And it was my meeting with Nihal Fernando, the photographer, who was at the Times of Ceylon, and I was working at the Times of Ceylon. Yes, I worked for 4 years at the time.
As a journalist?
As a journalist, yes. And Nihal was in the studio, and he had to take us, when I used to go and interview people, he was the photographer. So we got talking about birds and this and that, and then we discovered that both our interests were so close. And then Nihal got married to Doro, and I got married to Sarah, and we used to meet. Nihal always wanted to go out and take his photographs, wildlife photographs, and he invited us, and we had 2 children, and they also had 2 children. So we made a real group, and how many times we have been together and seen parts of Sri Lanka.
I hadn't realized you knew Nihal so well. They were such good friends, and both of them dying this year was so sad.
So sad.
But they had stopped traveling. I think Uncle Nihal was quite ill, but he was still bouncing around. I remember going with them to Horton Plains once, and that was marvelous. But I think she after he died especially, was ready to go.
Yes, she wanted to go, and every day she says, "Why am I here? Why am I here? What am I doing?"
No, it was sad, and I think it was released, but I remember those days with them. And when you mentioned that they had been great friends of yours, he was such a superb, let's say, raconteur, introducing you to places, handbook for the Ceylon traveller.
Handbook for the Ceylon traveller, that's it.
Which was marvellous. You were also involved in Rukrakaganno, no?
Yes, I started it actually, yes, with Nihal actually. When I was at the Times, because I was a member of the Wildlife Society, but when I went and spoke to people in the wilderness areas, or next to wilderness areas, they didn't like wildlife because they had to fight wildlife. They were in conflict all the time. So I thought, now how can we preach, this wildlife, to preserve wildlife and nature and so on. And then of course the Wildlife Society changed its name to Wildlife and Nature Protection Society, which might have gone some way to getting at them. But still I thought, talk of wildlife is no good to those people who are fighting wildlife. So I remember talking to Nihal and I said, we have to start another society, because I said the forests are burning and burning, everywhere forests were burning. So I came up with the name Rukrakaganno.
Guarding the trees.
Guarding the trees. And I remember Pat Decker was Nihal's partner. They had the studio downstairs. And Pat looked at me and said, "What is Ruk?" He couldn't understand what Ruk was. For Pat was a burglar. So I remember that, and that's how we started Rukrakaganno. And Via Demel became one of my members. And Lindy Alvis became our first president, I think, yeah.
And I think Raihana Rahim was also involved.
Raihana Rahim was there, yes, right.
Richard used to mention these very forceful women who were doing such a good job, because very few women got that involved in activism. I think the fact that you all did get involved in this social activism was marvelous. And I think you've also, although in a very quiet way, made your views clear on politics as well. In terms of not, I would say, political rivalry, that's perhaps not your business, but on commitment to the village, to environment, social concerns.
Oh, definitely, yes, yes.
And do you feel at the moment, you probably go down to the villagers a lot, what do you think our young people need most at this moment, compared with the type of education that you had? You were talking of the entertainment that came to your village.
Yes.
Now they have a lot of entertainment, but it seems to me it's not socially productive. What would you feel?
I think what young people want most today are jobs, because they are now educated. Most of them go to school, they have to go to school, and they pass their exams and nothing. So this is they all come and say, "Get me some kind of a job, please get me some kind of a job."
But there's no sense also of creating jobs in the village. That to me is a problem. They all want to come to towns.
No, there are some who are happy to work in the villages.
No, but are there the jobs for them then?
That's right. Yes, there are no jobs for them, that's true. So I thought perhaps I should try to see whether we can create agricultural jobs.
Do you still have ties with the village at Ruangvella, or is it?
Very little, but I had an estate, a rubber estate at Panavala, which is somewhere in that area. And I keep in touch with a certain family there. And now that boy is one of the people who have been educated. He passed his A-levels, but nothing. And he's willing to do anything. And then I think, that's very frightening, because they can become cynical and bitter, and who knows where they'll turn to for that. So I'm thinking it's quite a desperate need to create jobs.
And I think one of our problems is very few people still keep those ties, the decision makers.
Yes.
So perhaps, let's hope that the new political dispensation continues sensitive to the villagers.
Yeah, I think they are a little bit more close to the villagers, yes.
Well, thank you very much. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, good to talk to you too. Yeah.